8 p.m. here at Ligny Quatre Bras, and it feels as though the inevitable has begun. This battle was always a very tough one for the Prussians, but it's been kind of true to form so far. The villages have gone back and forth. The bulk of them are in the French hands, but there's been a pretty spirited battle right in this area between the 5th and 6th Prussian Brigades of the 2nd Corps against the 3rd Corps of the French. But where things have really turned is here in the center. Starting with this massive grand battery here. This artillery has just devastated the Prussians in front of it. And they've slowly prolonged up these slopes and continued firing. They've consumed a tremendous amount of ammunition, but they've had the effect they want. We've also seen the Young Guard here clear this area and drive back the Prussians eventually. They had some repulses to begin with. And then we saw the Grenadiers of the Guard just blast right through an entire regiment. Not surprising. Essentially, 2 full regiments going against 1 was no match. I probably should have used the old Guard charge. I just kind of forgot about that rule. Could have even done more damage with that. Probably will do that next. But it leaves us in a really precarious state for the Prussians. The 8th Brigade, I think it has 1 battalion here and 1 there. Basically, the 21st Regiment is right there, or remains of them. Much of the rest of the brigade has disordered or Plusquam disordered and retreated. Pieces and parts of the 7th Brigade are in here. The 6th Brigade is sort of spread out here. The remnants of the 5th Brigade are over there. A lot of them disordered. It doesn't seem like the Prussians are going to be able to fight for much longer. It seems like we've entered really the last phase, which is how big can the French win be? Can the Prussians hold them from getting too far into their rear area? And it becomes a game of victory conditions, not really a battle anymore, in the sense that the Prussians have any real chance at winning. Now, they really never had any chance at winning. Their army is just too poor a quality. But for a while there, they contested it pretty strongly. So I think what we'll see is the beginning of a retrograde movement, trying to get the 5th and 6th Brigades to move back, trying to keep them from being enveloped by the Guard here. Because there are some strong formations. The Guard, of course, the Chasseurs, the Guard Heavy Cavalry, as well as all of the 4th Reserve Cavalry can just move straight through here and potentially break the Prussian army in half. So a retrograde movement by the Prussians to get away and start retreating, probably to the northeast. The continued advance by the French to try to stop that here in the center. The French are in even better position because they have the 1st Corps coming in here. Already have 2 infantry divisions as well as their cavalry division against this blob of Prussian cavalry. Now our biggest problem is going to be command on both sides. The 1st Corps won't be able to move very effectively because there's only so many command points and they can't maneuver as a corps. They're unlikely to ever be activated and then maneuver as one big unit. So we'll have to parcel out command points of them in dribs and drabs. And the same goes for the Prussians. If the main goal is to extract the Prussian 2nd Corps, that's going to be tough because we only have 4 command points. 2 of the brigades over here are out of range of their corps leader, so That would require 2 command points to move 5th and 6th back, and then 1 for the rest of the Second Corps. That leaves us 1 command point to spend here, potentially, on the Prussian cavalry. And we haven't even looked at the far east side with the Russian Third Corps. So this is a very difficult situation. The French are kind of at leisure to move and develop their plans, while the Prussians are very hard-pressed to respond. Let's look at the east side real quick. Is there less glare? Is there ever any place that has no glare? Well, the French have sort of blown most of their cavalry, but in exchange they have blown up the whole center position here, and even some of the position here for the right of the Third Corps. But again, now that we're in this position where the center around Ligny is starting to collapse, we just don't have the command points to spend. We've already determined we're going to spend at least 3 in the center. That means we have 1 to spend, and we're probably going to use 1 to start to shift the Third Corps to the north to try to be, the barrier, the last bastion to let the rest of the army try to retreat. So that means our days of trying to advance are over, and we're looking at purely defensive. That's too bad, because we hung our cavalry out to dry way over here, so they're going to have to just withdraw. Probably can't even make it all the way to the north side of the stream and try to help in the defense. So the whole Prussian position is really breaking down badly. Now, at Quatre Bras, we have had that change of fortune for the Anglo-Allies, in that they've been able to advance the right, clearing this area for the road to Nivelles, but they've had a corresponding retrograde, so they sort of pivoted, from here back to there, the whole line. They have established a line. It's not much of one. This is the reserve division here. This is the 2nd Dutch Belgian. See the scattered remains of the Brunswick brigades. And then the 3rd Division and 1st Division here. Interesting, there's this gigantic hole right in the center. Probably try to fill that with the Dutch Belgians there. But we saw some interesting cavalry charges and then counterattacks. It's really kept them at bay. This French light cavalry has done a good job with their skirmish factors, keeping the French moving, or the British moving very slowly here. But is there going to be a decisive outcome on this side? I kind of doubt it. We have 7 turns remaining. That means they would have to really recapture the crossroads, which with the guns and the infantry here with the 9th Division doesn't seem plausible. But that's what we have left to accomplish here. If they can swing this up this way and recapture the crossroads, perhaps they gain a real measure of victory. If they can push this division hard enough, which seems extremely unlikely because we have so few increments of useful infantry over here, they might be able to push the 2nd Corps, the French Corps, to another morale level. But otherwise, this is looking like it's going to end up as, a French victory, but kind of a stalemate. They didn't have the forces necessary to actually exit anyone back toward Ligny down this road. So they won't have that. In the bigger picture, since the 1st Corps did divert to Ligny, that was the strategic objective of this fight. So I guess they accomplished that. It's really the French look good over here from this perspective and look very terrible over here. If they have an objective, it's just to hold on with the forest right here. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to shift the divisions much further to protect this area. Probably going to rely on the 2nd Cavalry, as they have for many hours, to countercharge and just slow up the advance here. It might be a good idea to get the entirety of Kellerman's 3rd Reserve Corps over here and just charge and try to take out the rest of those battalions. They can push the British into another morale level. Maybe that'll help stymie this attack over here. But otherwise, we're not looking at big changes. I think there are some reinforcements, some heavy cavalry coming for the French. Not likely to arrive in any time that will be dramatic, but it could be helpful right at the end if they could end up on this flank and possibly charge and hurt somebody on this end. So the real question is it worth the bother to keep playing? Do you just call it at this stage? I do kind of like end stage battles where you have to perform some sort of a maneuver to save yourself to fight another day. So I think I'm going to undertake that, just for the interest of it. But I don't see any possible way for the French to be stopped here. I mean, the Guard is just too strong. All that cavalry is going to run roughshod. So I think it's truly just an effort at trying to save some measure of the Prussian army. That's all we have left to accomplish. So we will give that a go and see what happens. Starting with command, the Allies did fairly well with command here at Quatre Bras. Wellington's Ride produced 3 right here. His ADC Gordon created another maneuver unit. Rolled for light cavalry initiative for Dutch-Belgian. I think that's the Dutch cavalry regiment right there. And then Prince of Orange activated the 2nd Brigade there. And Picton used his command point over there. So 7 maneuver units in all for the Allies. French have the normal 2 maneuver units that they get for Ney and the 2nd Corps. Spent on Kellerman here. And the 11th Heavy Cavalry, I can't remember who that guy is. But basically we're going to try to maneuver the Heavy Cavalry. We also rolled for initiative for the 2nd Division here. So it's an all-cavalry turn here. Just going to hold the infantry in place, exchange some shots, and try to get the upper hand with the horse. Shifting over to Ligny, going to spend 2 of our command points here on the 1st Corps. Keep them moving up the road. Failed to get initiative for the cavalry, so they won't be moving. Though we do anticipate some reinforcements of the 4th Division arriving here behind their cavalry division. Shifting over towards Ligny. Light cavalry here. Did not activate or use a maneuver unit for the activated 3rd Corps. Just going to let them hang out here. No need to push them back anymore because we're pretty certain we're going to get what we want out of the Guard here in the center. So we're activating the Guard, or a maneuver unit for the activated Guard, and also using a maneuver unit on the activated 4th Reserve Cavalry. Going to get them moving. So this whole area of the French should be able to move forward. That leaves one more command point. Get rid of the glare. And that's going to be spent here on the 9th Cavalry. And they have these 3 units in command. And what the heck, probably going to throw another charge, beat back some of these Prussians there. Additionally, just because, rolled for light cavalry initiative here for the 1st Reserve Cavalry. So that is the French command situation. And for the Prussians, the plan for the Prussians, such as there is don't die too quickly. So here in the east, we're going to try to shift the 3rd Corps slowly north. Try to, I don't know, maybe get that 11th Brigade this direction. Next part of the plan involves the 1st Corps. Maybe shore up a bit of a line in this direction. Give the 2nd Corps a few moments to try to pull back. So the 2nd Corps right here, that probably gets us the 7th and the 8th, and I think the 6th Brigades. So the 5th Brigade gets another command point. That's all 4. And then we did have some light cavalry initiative on this side. Activated this brigade here. I don't know what to do with those guys, but that's our command situation. So we'll begin by pulling chits as usual. The first chit pull is pretty important. The Allies do have the advantage in the number of maneuver units in the cup, so they are hoping against hope that they can draw first. And they do. Now that's fortunate because the Prussians are in quite a bit of disarray and they really need that first move. So let's see what we can get done here. First off, I forgot I had a maneuver unit over here. This Russian light cavalry had initiative, so I brought them back towards the ford or crossing of the stream there just to get them out of the way. Moved. The 11th Brigade, shifted them this direction, trying to get them north. Maybe get position up into here. Who knows, try to give some cover to the retreating Prussians. Had the 1st Corps start to shift, get a line across here, bringing the 3rd Brigade over this way. There's so little left of it, and they're on morale level 2. There's not going to be a lot they can do, but had a command point allocated, so we used it. In the center, we had the 2nd Corps just barely start to pull back. Elements of the 6th and 8th Brigades here. The 7th was so tied up and also so many units out of command, I kind of neglected to catch that. No one could move there. And then just started to pull the 5th Brigade back a little bit. A couple of units here and there. Boy, our situation is pretty dire. Didn't get a lot of space. French are still going to be in prime position. And then this cavalry brigade had a little bit of movement, decided to shift. The skirmishers didn't want to pull them completely away. Had a thought of maybe pulling them off this way, but instead I decided to interdict the French movement for another turn. Now for the Anglo-Allies here, Quatrepois didn't undertake anything really dramatic. Had Picton's command point over here, just move this disordered unit back. Nothing happening there really. Shifted the, well, I guess it's here, Saxe-Weimars, Nassau's. Nothing much. And then I just tried to advance a little bit with the 3rd and 1st divisions here. These are all assaulting, but really they're just going against the light cavalry and skirmish order, so they'll just retreat out of the way. I don't have any high hopes here. I mean, maybe we can pour some fire. Didn't really try to assault anybody. Maybe put some more fire on these squares. Have this artillery battery here is going to fire fairly point blank at those lancers. Just punish the French a little bit. The Allied chit pull is going to proceed rather quickly. I left the markers here for all the fire combat casualties. Only assaults were right here, as this guard just moved forward and pushed back the skirmishing cavalry. The 2 units here failed to rally. One is actually some artillery, the other is some remnants of Hanoverian skirmishers. So not a lot happened here. They just tried to put some fire on the French. Hit these squares. Actually did manage to break a battalion here. That morale level the 2nd Corps is on hurt them. But otherwise they more or less just stayed on their lines there. On the right flank, the Prussians had a pretty good time rallying. Many of these battalions were disordered, and they did rally. See a few casualties inflicted. An important one was here. The Young Guard sustained a casualty that killed the leader of the Young Guard. That could affect the French in the coming turns. Unfortunately, Prussians didn't fare quite so well rallying here. See a bunch of routed units streaming back from the front lines here as they were beat back and retreating. I don't know if we can see this. Here, it's a very large number, 4 increment loss. The defensive fire of the Grand Battery wiped out the remains of a Prussian battalion. And finally, on the far east side, also have a fair amount of retreating battalions. Much of the 12th Brigade is falling back there, and also the 10th Brigade is starting to fall back as well. So not all great for the Prussians, but I guess what we want is for them to retreat in this general direction. So they're getting there either voluntarily or involuntarily. So that will conclude the Allied chit poll, and we'll move on to the next chit. Back to the draw cup, and the next chit is the French. I guess they wanted that. They think they would move a little bit and then regroup their forces out of command. That would be their best advantage, so we'll go ahead and take care of the French. I think there's only one course of action to take here, and that is to start by charging the French Guard heavy cavalry. And the real reason is getting down to the end. And if I decide to give up the game, I don't want to do that without having charged that cavalry at least once. So they're a long way off, but when they get to here, then we're going to try to crush these Prussian members of the 1st Brigade there, the 1st Corps. So, again by charging this guy. Now we're at, I guess really here, he could try to form square. So we may as well give that a whirl. Is it surprising that the Landwehr don't have a negative modifier for trying to form square? But they don't, so those guys do form. Now the others are not in line of sight, so we're going to keep going. These skirmishers are effectively blocking. So we're going to move right there. And now the skirmishers have to, I think, retreat before that charge. That's their only sensible thing to do. I think we're going to retreat them right here. Join up with that. Now we have 2 battalions that probably need to try to form square. The outcome is kind of mixed here. This battalion forms square, but this one routes. So now I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to go ahead and pursue. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think pursuit is the most reasonable thing to do here. So we'll retreat them 1 hex. And they will advance 2 to get into contact. I think they have to suffer opportunity fire for passing in front of that square. So at the end of that long charge, their pursuit yields I'm going to move up a little bit here so I can see. It's going to yield 2 casualties, and that will bring them to a conclusion. Retreat those guys and check for any Landwehr cascading retreats. There are none. So the Dragoons finish their charge right there. Wasn't quite as dramatic as I hoped. I guess that'll learn me to charge from long distances. Now we have one final regiment we can charge right here. As soon as he gets to that position, I believe the line of sight comes into play. So we could, well, yeah, he's in line, so he wouldn't have been able to see that charge that went this way. So he's 1 hex distant. We're going to try to form square. Now this is the 1st Prussian Corps. They are on morale level 2. As far as I can see, there's no adverse modifiers to square formation for much of anything, really. But in this case, these guys do disorder, fail to form in disorder. So we're going to go ahead and pursue them. They will retreat 1 hex. We have to expend 2 more movement points to get there. And I didn't count my movement points very well, because that's basically at the end of their charge, so therefore they do not inflict any pursuit casualties. So we'll just retreat them the rest of their way, and we will have barely done anything with our guard. But I got to charge the guard cavalry. I think I'll make that the only charge the French will undertake, so we'll just get on with our movement. That completes most of the French movement. We have one last maneuver unit to handle. But here at Quatre Bras, it was all about shifting some cavalry. Move the 2nd Division Light Cavalry into position just to try interdicting the British. Shifted the 12th Heavy Cavalry, trying to get them over here, along with the 11th. And of course the idea is we're going to end up charging the British, trying to push back that left flank. Over at Ligny, we shifted the 4th Corps Cavalry, or excuse me, that's the 3rd Corps Cavalry, and the purpose being to get astride those skirmishing cavalry and remove their interdiction, let the French infantry move up on top of them, and I forgot to mark them with assault, but I will forgive myself that oversight. They're going to try to sweep back that Prussian cavalry. Otherwise did not try any kind of charges or anything. 3rd Corps didn't move at all. 4th Corps didn't move at all. Did advance the 4th Reserve Heavy Cavalry across the stream. Obviously the point is to get them ready to charge. And to the far east, just a couple of minor things. Shifted the 1st Reserve Light Cavalry just a little bit. Do we want to engage? I don't know, but we're not going to. And then the 9th Cavalry, these Dragoons, just moved them forward, took a position here. They're basically now in front of the Prussian artillery, this battalion, and that battalion, all out of command. Which means I should have a marker on that guy to show he's out of command, but those were the simple repositioning movements we made. And that leaves us with one spot. And that is the Guard here in the center. I did not move the general there. Yeah, it's this guy. And the reason I wanted to leave them for last is because I want to try an Old Guard charge. I've got the 1st Grenadiers and the 2nd Grenadiers, and I can perform a charge with the infantry. And it's sort of like a cavalry charge except with infantry. And it's only available to the 1st and 2nd of the Old Guard. So I have Grenadiers here. Now the Chasseurs are way over here. I don't really have a good... I don't know that I have a great target for them, but if I can pick something out, we'll go after them. Basically, I want the Grenadiers to go this way. I would like the Chasseurs to go that way, and see what they can get up to. Now, the big advantage to an Old Guard charge is that they can move, effectively initiate an assault, potentially pushing the enemy out of the way, and if they go to melee and they win, if they have movement points remaining, they can keep going and assault another hex. So I didn't plan this very well because I left this regiment way back here last turn, but in the event I never get to try this again, I'm going to go through with it anyway. So first I'm going to try to run the 2nd Grenadiers here against that battalion. Now it's not an assault, it's kind of a quasi-assault charge. I'm going to use an assault marker to demonstrate my movement here. I'm going to hit that unit right there. They are going to check morale. 26, so there's a -6 modifier. I'm not entirely clear if all morale modifiers apply to this or not. But nevertheless, that battalion rolled very high. So they would then give defensive fire, but because they're being hit in the flank, they can't fire. Now the old guard would check their morale. They have a no morale, so obviously they must pass. And then they would give offensive fire. That would be 14 against that 6 in unit and column. Their fire does inflict a casualty, but no morale check. So I think now we proceed to melee. So this will be 8.5 in defense, 38.5 in the attack. It's about 4.5 to 1 odds. And we roll a defender disorder. So those Prussians will disorder and retreat with an increment loss. Now I think the cascade effect is in effect because we have to retreat past those Landwehr. But they are with the Marshal right there, and they do pass. So now, we're going to try to hit the Marshal. We can keep going with our remaining movement points. We can hit him with our 6th movement point. So another resolution process, just like we did. The Landwehr pass their check and give their defensive fire. No effect there. So now, the old guard has no morale, so they must pass, so now they'll give their offensive fire. They do inflict a casualty, but the Landwehr pass the morale check. So now we'll proceed to the melee. The odds were 2 to 1, and the dice we rolled were a 64. But it was only a flesh wound, so the Marshal is not knocked out of the battle as he was historically. So close, but not quite. But still, it'll be a disorder on the Prussians and a retreat. Increment loss and a retreat. Now these guys have to check morale. And unfortunately, they fail. So now they have to retreat. And that becomes our cascade effect. So they have to move through to get away. But now we have to check morale on that guy. Unfortunately, the Marshal is still with them. And he manages to keep that battalion from breaking. So now we have, let's see, how many more movement points do we have left? We have 2 movement points remaining after advancing into that hex. So we can't assault him because that would require 3 movement points. But we could presumably turn and hit that guy. So I guess that's what we'll do. So now we'll just carry out the process one last time. Now they fail this morale check, and the process has them disorder in place. Since they're already disordered, they'll become pluscon disordered. Now they would give defensive fire, which they can't in that state. Now the guard will give offensive fire. Oh no, they first check their morale is perfect, so they will give offensive fire. So we'll conduct the melee in this degraded state after the guard fired with no effect. This is obviously going to be a 5 to 1 attack. And they roll a defender rout, which is, not surprising. But now comes the question of, where do these guys retreat? If they retreat this way, they would have to move through those guys. They would also have to move through, another zone of influence. The quickest way away from the zone of influence is this way. That takes them by the cavalry. Somehow that seems worse. So I think maybe I'm going to have to take them, and they can't go through the ammunition wagons. So I think they have to go through here and then away, which will put this guy at a disadvantage because he'll be forced to make a morale check. He's going to end up right there. I don't think there's any landwehr around there. Now, this guy's going to have to make a morale check. And he rolled very poorly, so he's going to have to retreat. And I think that'll do it, won't it? Let's see. No, I think he has one more movement point left, so we could assault that ammunition wagon. I don't know what for, there's nothing to be gained. I suppose we can fire on him. Well, he has to check morale. He has a 33. It's all likelihood he'll rout. And I guess he just disorders in place. This is kind of pointless. It's going to be a destruction of those wagons anyway. So we'll just wipe those wagons out, and that should be the end of his charge. I believe that's as far as he can get. So that's an old guard infantry charge. I have 3 more to carry out. I think I'll take care of those and then just review the result. And here's the final position of the guard post-charge. Here we see the grenadiers kind of spread out all along this area here. So we're definitely going to have a command problem. See some Prussian cavalry opportunity charged. This one failed too. That's why they were there. But it looks like the grenadiers really cleaned quite a swath over here. And there's a mass of routed units back there. Even further, this whole mess of routed units. We're starting to see the Prussian army really break down. Shifting towards the center position. These are the chasseurs right through here. And they, cleared out many of the units here and caused a number of the routes going to the northeast. And then the Young Guard, just as part of normal movement, has launched some assaults here on some of these poor condition units. So from a command perspective, the leader of the guard decided to come over here to the left side because he had more forces in command. The grenadiers were spread out so much that he had to choose one side or the other. So we'll keep these guys in command and moving, and the grenadiers will actually be sort of left to their own devices for at least one turn, or maybe more. But that's where the movement will leave us. We'll just go ahead and resolve our fire combats and the few melees we have, and take a look at the situation when those are concluded. Part of the mass of retreats here includes the Field Marshal himself. So he was swept away with that routed battalion, which means he may have drifted far enough away to lose the active status for his 2 corps commanders. That could very much affect the Prussians' next turn. We'll see if he can reestablish contact in their leader's phase. So this is where the French stand at the end of their chit pole after combats and fire and melee combats. Go in for a closer look. Here, the Young Guard chased out much of the Prussian infantry that they were facing. Lots of Place Grand disorder battalions around here. It's going to be a theme for the Prussians. The Guard, the Old Guard, Didn't make too much more progress. They managed to fight off this cavalry countercharge and then rout one more battalion. See a mass of routed battalions there. And some of the cascade effect has been hurting them as well. But otherwise, nothing really much happened this turn. I mean, it was largely just the attack of the guard here in the center. Over at Quatre Bras, we just sort of held ground as much as we could, and not much else movement. So we will call that the end of the French turn, and what we have left are the 4 action chits. Really, they only matter in the sense that the leader and regroup chit could affect some of the movement here, mostly for the Prussians, but somewhat for the French as well. But otherwise, the Grand Battery has, assembled right here, and they have nothing in front of them. They've wiped out the last of the Prussian defenders, so no one to shoot. And the reinforcements at this point in the game really don't matter. They're not going to come into play. So we'll finish off those chits and then take a look at where we stand. So with the final action chits being drawn, this is the end of the 8 p.m. turn. The action chits were drawn in order: leaders, regroup, reinforcements, and then finally artillery. Now the position here is basically completely blown open. The guard have cleared away everything in front of them. I think there's one Landwehr battalion here, a few over here, and the rest of the 5th and 6th Brigades here. But otherwise, most of the 8th and all the artillery is just gone. It might be kind of hard to see, but there's this complete mass of Place Grande disorder units here. And I counted up, including those here on the western side and those on the eastern side, that there are, along with completely eliminated units, 52 Prussian battalions not able to fight in this upcoming turn here at Ligny, and that's against, I think it's 9 or 7 French battalions on the Ligny side of the field that won't be able to fight next turn. That's eliminated and in Place Grande disorder. 52 to 9. So we're really kind of starting to see the disintegration of the Prussian army. Now they do have a chance, even though these units are all on morale levels. They could rally and potentially stave off falling to a morale level 3. That does look inevitable at this point. The French have the mass of the heavy cavalry here available, a couple of Prussian cavalry regiments there, but nothing that can really stand in the way of these charging through and basically just cutting another wide swath through what remains of the army there. Be sweet to have some light cavalry, like maybe that light cavalry of the guard that's been sitting around doing nothing all day. But we'll probably have to make do with this heavy and see what kind of damage they can do. The Prussians, they didn't really accomplish much with the regroup. They were able to draw some forces away. They're basically just trying to get away from contact here and possibly get up north here and set up a line of defense. On the far west side of the field, they tried to reposition cavalry. So they basically just kedged cavalry back this direction, and not all of them were able to get back into command span. The rest of the cavalry is still trying to screen here, but have no real strong position that they're trying to hold. For reinforcements, the French were able to bring on more of the First Corps. Additionally, I should have entered the First Corps leader like an hour and a half ago, and I just forgot. Didn't see him on the setup. So that was a command point denied to us for 4 or 5 turns, but we didn't really need it. But at least he'll be able to keep moving up the road here. Obviously at this point he has no one to fight. He's just going to try to push back cavalry, but still he makes sure that he can get as far up that road as possible and possibly envelop the 5th and 6th Brigade remnants. I didn't try to ignore Quatre Bras this turn, it's just that no one was in a position to make a bold stroke. So the guards just move forward against that skirmishing cavalry. The French had nothing to work with here, and they maintained their position here. They spent all their command on the cavalry. So maybe in the upcoming turns they'll be able to charge and possibly roll back the left flank of the Anglo-Allied army here. But it's looking more and more like things are coming to a conclusion. There are some reinforcements that came in this turn for the French, this heavy cavalry. We could very well veer them off this direction, and it might keep the Allies at bay here. If we feel like it, we might actually decide to move forward and attack with the French here. Maybe that, in conjunction with artillery or cavalry charges, will relieve the pressure on the French left. The French have lost very heavily in the 6th Division. There's not a lot left. I think there's a grand total of 4 battalions left out of 4 really large regiments. So they've been fighting hard all day, and it's showing. These armies must be getting tired because the gamer sure is. I think for all intents these contests are over. It is, a fairly historic victory at Ligny for the French. A somewhat ahistoric victory here at Quatre Bras. The fact that we were able to draw off the First Corps, not quite as soon as maybe we would want, but the fact that they did get involved at Ligny is kind of a strategic, operational kind of victory. A combination of the higher morale levels and the lack of, any kind of opposition here in the center means that I don't see the Prussians being able to hold on. I don't even know if I can get them to retreat other than in full plus grand disorder. So I think I'm going to call it. 8 p.m. I think that's a French victory. And I might play a few more turns just to see how this develops, but I don't think there's anything left to see from a competitive standpoint. So there it was. Combined Ligny and Quatre Bras. Much better for the French than historically. But it's funny, I think, how many of the same things played out for the Prussians as did historically. The overcommit of the reserves, the attempt to counterattack when it seemed like we had a bit of an advantage, and not paying attention to the interior lines of communication that really are their advantage here. So our command was diluted, our command points were squandered on more than one occasion, and ultimately that really cost us in the rapid collapse here. If only I had kept some cavalry back there, I could have countercharged, I think. I don't like my chances against the Guard, but it's better than nothing, than just routing and retreating. Damn. Here's what I get for not digging down to the bottom of the box. Here's errata. And it states that the fords do permit artillery to cross at a cost of 2 movement points. So all that time I wasted trying to uncover the bridges here so I could get my artillery across when I could have crossed them right here the entire time. So that cost me some time, but didn't really change the game any, did it? The end of the 8:20 p.m. turn has the Prussians again streaming to the rear. The French charged the mass of the 4th Reserve Cavalry, Then the Guard again attacked, pushing this whole area and clearing it out. The French had the good fortune to draw the first maneuver unit, so they were able to continue that attack without the Prussians being able to reform. So that made a lot of trouble. But having the second draw allowed the Prussians actually to recover quite a few units, and while they don't have a defense, at least they have units capable of resisting the next attack. Not much happened at Quatre Bras. We see the Prussians are streaming away from the towns here. The First Corps is still blocked by that cavalry, but the rest of the cavalry is retreating back here. And then the retreat continues of the Third Corps. Again, they're trying to loop around over there. Not great movement made because they're basically just kedging, but that's all they have to work with. And this would be the start of the 9 p.m. turn. In the previous turn, the Allies drew the first maneuver unit, and that was a disadvantage because the French got to move and attack second, and that just blew open more space here in the center, putting the Prussian army to flight. Big problem for both sides. Certainly the Prussians is that they really have no more functioning maneuver units. The command has become dispersed, and much of the maneuver is done by individual units, stacks. Allocating a command point doesn't get more than 1, maybe 2 battalions in command. The French are in a similar position in that the Guard has become dispersed around this large arc here, so they're no longer able to maneuver as a corps and would have to move as individual divisions or even just individual stacks. But fortunately the French have plenty of command, so they could do that if they wanted to. They also have the heavy cavalry here, which had recovered last turn and is ready to go. But they've already driven the Prussian First Corps to level 3, Second Corps to level 2, and they're already at the east-west road here. So there would be 4 turns remaining, but this isn't even any fun anymore. I just wanted to see how far I could get them, and I think it's clear that they could definitely win a decisive victory. At this stage, I think it would be overwhelming only, but there's just no more. There's no more defense. There's no more resistance here. It's just the Prussians trying to either route move or just escape and getting chased down by either the Guard or the cavalry. And here, Quatre Bras, it's similarly a decisive French victory. What gains the British made down here with the Guard division really were completely lost, and the French charged their heavy cavalry and then surged forward with their 5th Division. So it threw the British onto a morale level 3, which is the conditions for a decisive victory. They also control the crossroads all the way to the east, so no real defense up here any longer, and nothing to be gained by attacking on their right. So decisive victory on both fields for the French.